opinions expressed in the podcast are purely individual and do not represent that of the colleges that are a part of it.
I know, man.
Yeah, so
Exactly. I was so
basically, I mean,
thinking about
really?
guys. I think they're here. What? We're ready? You guys are here? Hi guys, I'm Gurjyot. I'm a fourth year at Srishti. Hello, I'm Srushti, and I'm from Srishti, and I'm in my third year.
Hi guys, I'm Adithi and I'm in my fourth year of architecture from RV College.
Hi guys, I'm Aena Saman and I'm in fourth year too and I'm studying in Harvey College of Architecture.
Oh man, 4 years. Can you really imagine what your 12th grade self would look at you now, and would they even be able to recognize you?
Definitely not. I mean, like, for sure, I have absolutely done a 180 on my entire persona and my thinking process as well. What about you guys?
I think I personally came from such a shell, like a shelled environment where I was taken care of and looked after and all of that. And right at college, I think first year that slap on the face that tells you gotta do your work on your own was kind of the hit and got me where I am today. Absolutely. I think it's interesting that you point out the different layers that have changed, like not alone my social self, but academically. If I were to look at my thinking processes or the way I articulated any bit when I was in my 12th, has so drastically changed, or actually not even my 12th. I would say that in the last 1 or 2 years, that's so drastically changed from what it was earlier. I don't know how is it to study in RV per se for you guys in the last 4 years? How has it changed?
I mean, apart from the overarching corona, which was, we can all agree, a horrible phase for every student out there. But RV is a very innovative or like hands-on learning campus. So it was a complete transition coming from like people who are preparing for IIT, JEE mains.
Yeah, and even during the first 2 weeks of RV itself, you were like made to do so many different random things and it just got you thinking how is this going to help me in architecture because you're just dropping eggs from random
Gosh.
floors and you're watching a movie and trying to make a poster out of it and it was just all over the place but then I think there was a reason why they made us do that because we just came from such a strict curriculum and way of learning where the textbooks like you need to do this and you just do the exact same thing.
While Aina was talking about this, the one thing that I was immediately reminded of was the unlearn system in Srishti, because that's what we've started with. The first week itself, again, same thing. We've done unconventional things that we would not think otherwise of. It's interesting because unlearning not only breaking all of our what's the CBSE or the school structures had instilled in us, breaking through all of that. But apart from that, I think also learning what Srishti had to offer from calling our faculty by name and getting comfortable with, referring to them as, say, without like attaching a sir or ma'am.
Yeah.
Now we were suddenly asked to look for problems, look for things that are around us rather than just trying to document them, but more of observing and looking at things.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. I mean, like before, like if you asked 12th grade me what architecture is, I would say it's like probably building pretty buildings. But it takes a lot of like unlearning in terms of like your perception to know that design school is not just about like making things pretty or designing things, but it's more of like problem solving.
That's true.
I think even with like when it comes to how we shape our perception and how we observe things because that's one thing I as a 12th grader wouldn't do. You know, when I see a thing, ha ye hai to hai. And but after coming into architecture you just start thinking ki, you know how did it even come into this place and what is its function and how many people are probably using it or why is this particular thing the in the place that it is in.
I think another interesting thing about design schools per se is the idea of peer learning. And I know you guys at RV have a campus which enables that, and you kind of get to meet people. But at Srishti, it's a mix of both peer learning and learning from your environment. Since we don't have a campus, the simple idea of hanging out with friends can sometimes end up being some beautiful discussion about our practice, or end up being a whole session on learning a specific software, or like helping somebody with a project.
Yeah, and like speaking about environment as well, it not only like you don't just like learn from your environment, but you learn to look at your environment as a place of learning, which I think is like unconsciously just in us. Now that if I go even to like a metro station or say an auto stand, there is something that I can learn that can help me in a totally unrelated project. But I know I probably got an inspiration or I saw an application in that space.
Yeah, even when it comes to like peer learning, and I think most of the way our class works, like peer learning is very important to us. Like we are always at each other's desk helping out, giving crits and doing all sorts of things. And that's what really helps improve our designs also, because you know what friend can help you figure out what part of your design, so you get these multiple inputs into your concept or your ideas. And
I think the whole field of design, or what we're doing collectively, is so rapid changing, and it gets us to be very adaptive at the end of the day.
yeah, I think it has to be very adaptive in nature, because like there are always so many people involved and everyone has like a different approach. So in the end, you just learn to like respect people's opinions and adapt to their ways and have them adapt to yours also, so that it's not like a very mixed feeling, but like a very rather wholesome approach in the end.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note how everybody has their own way of working. So I like that you brought that up, Ina, because like Srushti and I have been in the same class in the past, but the fact that we come from such diverse, say, majors and practices, also different cultural backgrounds. Absolutely. And I mean, you'll see with the same brief that might be so boxed and structured, everybody comes up with such diverse outcomes, and none of them would look like each other unless, I mean, somebody was helping each other too much.
I think that's really interesting that you guys have like different majors and like different things that intersect. We don't really have majors undergraduate course, but the cool thing is like each class is completely different and has a completely different approach. And it sometimes is completely dependent on like the teachers that teach them and their schools of thought. But it's mostly about how like as a class, we're more receptive to learning. So maybe they showed us a movie one day and none of us really paid attention. The teachers would be like, you know what? Okay, we'll do something else. And they somehow take the most random things.
So even with how even different people have like different approach. There might be 40 different ideas or iterations, with the same brief. But at the end of the day, I think each class has its own identity and the way in which they work. My section will look at it in a very completely different angle as a class, and then B section will come along and they'll just have a different approach, and you'll be like, wait, we didn't even think of it in that way or in that direction.
Along with peer learning, there's also like that other flip coin where it's peer pressure and you're just like, shit, there are 39 different ways that I could have done better.
We're just always told there is no right or wrong in design, and then you're just like, why isn't mine working then? Like, why isn't mine good enough? But then I think how I've coped up with it is, I've always told myself ki everyone has different approach and everyone has a different process, so everyone's journey is different. So there's no point in comparing their journey to yours, because obviously it's such a different thing. There's no middle grounds to which you can say this is why they did this and which is why you should have done this. At the end of the day, if I'm still better than what I was from last week, that's all that matters to me, and that's how I'm still trying to cope with it.
we look at a lot of stories every day, but Gurjyot and I might not see the same stories. So, what stories you see and read will sharpen you in different ways. And I think that's how that will lead you to whatever you're doing in life. So that will become your learning curve at the end of the day. The stories that you see with your eyes, and that is the most important thing. Well, I think, guys, it's important to make sure that we talk about the identity part in this podcast. Like, that's one lens that I would not like to miss out for all our listeners. As to the kind of identity crisis we go through, or how we constantly keep trying to understand who we are as people.
Yeah, with identity, I feel like being a designer is so much more like being a sponge. We just take so much information from our like environment and like other people, and we're just so like involved with our like surroundings and what we've learned. We kind of forget where we stand as designers. And that's like one of the biggest comment I've gotten in these like last few years. They're just like, yeah, you've like done a great work. You've gotten like an amazing design, but what part of it is you? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I genuinely don't know. Who am I?
I think even with like the identity part of it, like it's just sometimes it's so haunting because you're always like taking inspiration from so many people and so many things, and then you just question out yourself: are you becoming them, or is it inspiring you to a very different level? Or are you just turning into them? And then you're just like, wait, this can't happen. Where is me? This just looks like a knockoff.
As long as we keep questioning that thing, that's the best part. Like, I've always been talking about, Gurjot and I have always been talking about this, how if you realize that you are going wrong, or if you even realize that this might be something that I'm doing and which is in a direction that you don't want, we are halfway through transitioning into what we want to become, or what we don't know, what we don't want to become. I have questioned everything from my sense of belonging to identity to spirituality in the process of understanding myself. I've moved around a lot in my childhood, and I never felt like I belonged. So the idea that I hold so dearly with where truly belong is something that, I feel like I belong in everything that's around me. I belong in every person that I know, every conversation that I have, every space that I visit. We are so drastically just away from everything. I mean, at home, nobody asked about your opinion. At home, nobody cared about what your political stance was, or how did you deal with things. Every had a fight, go back home, and
Yeah, like everything in the end when it comes to like your campus, your faculty, or like the friends around you, it just helps you shape your ideas or your perceptions about the world. And I think where in school you're just told something A to Z, and but in college you just come and just jumble up everything for yourself and try to form a new you, or like a different you that might like be the start of you as like a design journey.
That's like a great like take on how each small thing would eventually become you. But I think what I'm really scared about is if I have an identity, I'll never be able to change it. Like it's just like set in stone, and then suddenly I can't like I don't know, dude. I don't know if it's some weird commitment issues, but I can't just be one person. I need to be like ever evolving.
We are a personality when we're with our parents. We have a certain personality when we're with our friends, faculty. All of it changes, and I think soul is a mix of of those multiple personalities just coming together to make a beautiful mix at the end of it. A beautiful imperfect mix, if I may call it that. If we had to get this to a conclusion, all of our understanding about learning here, what would be a takeaway of all these 4 years that we've had in our colleges? What would be a learning takeaway from this? Mine would be to keep challenging yourself and to not stop failing and making mistakes, because I think failure is the greatest teacher. And success just takes you to cloud nine and then throws you from there when you fail. Keep trying, keep going keep trying to experiment with whatever you're doing, and don't stick to one thing forever, and don't try to know what you're best at right in the beginning. You will figure it out and just give life its course to run.
You'll never know. You will again find something new and start from scratch like a kid.
Yeah, my take has been to just, follow your own way or your own method of doing it and find out what you're comfortable with and what you're uncomfortable with. So by the end of the day, you need to like step out of your boundaries, but you also have to come up with something that will help you with this studio. So that's my takeaway. Like, you don't have to follow somebody else's method.
You go, Adithi.
I think you guys basically summarized it. But one of my main advice would be to not be afraid to look for answers. Like, there are some answers that you're like, you wouldn't want knowing, like, you don't want to hear them, and you're just like, okay, you know what, I didn't want this. But it's always good to like sort of go looking for it if you're always questioning yourself or questioning everything. Like, don't just be afraid of the answers.
I mean, this is a borrowed thought, but I think for me it was to question design all the time and what design is. And recently I came across this thought which said that design is a thought process and it's not a deliverable. So you keep thinking and thinking and growing things and you grow with it. So you don't need to push yourself and say that, hey, why do I not have an output already?
Mic drop. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, guys.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Tune in for some more good content later.
Yeah, I hope you have as much as fun as we had talking about this.
This was RVCX Srishti.
Yeah, hey, yes.